back some maths. We're looking at shape, and because actually it's National Numeracy Day today, hopefully we're going to get you doing some practical maths around the house. But to start with, we need an understanding of the topic. So we are looking at shape, and specifically within shape, we're looking at perimeter. Now, perimeter is the distance around the outside of a 2D shape. And actually within the word perimeter, you've got rim, R-I-M. Think about your bath when you sit in the bath at home. You've got the rim, that's the edge that's all the way around the outside. So it's the distance around the outside of a 2D shape. So we're going to look at how to calculate that in a few different ways with a couple of different scenarios. So if you've got squared paper like me, at a simple level, we can just count the squares around the outside. So what I can do is I can start at a point, and it's always good practice to put a dot where you start, because it might be, like we've got over here, when you start to have bigger shapes, it's going to take you a little bit of a long time, and you don't want to go back and count the same side again. But I'm just going to count the squares to start with. I know there's 3 there. I'm going to work my way down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then because it's a regular shape, I know there's 3 there and 5 there. And actually by putting the numbers on as well, it helps you to not go and count this side again instead of just writing out a sum or a number sentence at the bottom. So in total I can say the perimeter for that shape, so I'm going to say P for perimeter equals 5 and 5 is 10, 3 and 3 is 6, therefore it equals 16. So I've just worked out the distance of each length of the sides around the outside of that shape. It's not to do with the space in the middle, it's to do with the distance around the outside. So again, if you were a little man, or if I was walking around the outside of this shape, I'd have to walk 3 squares, 5 squares, 3 squares, 5. So we might want to put it as a number sentence because it just shows the same understanding. So it might be that part of your practice when you're calculating perimeter is to actually write out a number sentence, because they're both showing the perimeter is equal to 16, but it's always really good to find a final answer. Now, because they're just squares, we're just going to leave it as 16. But as you can see from my second shape, it'd be very difficult for me to count per square. So instead, I'm going to have to measure it. I'm going to need to use a ruler. So I'm still going to apply the same strategy. So I'm going to start standing on that point there. And I could have chosen any of the corners, just that one. And I'm going to measure them really carefully. So I know that, and I'm going to do it as accurately as possible, is 4 centimetres. And they're definitely centimetres now, because my ruler tells me. So I'm actually going to add those units on as well. Distance down there is 3 centimetres. And you might want to do it with a higher level of accuracy. It might be that you start to put decimals into your work, or just measure it all as millimetres. And then 5 centimetres. So again, now that I've written the values on each side, I can begin to put them together. So I know the perimeter is equal to 5 centimetres plus 4 centimetres plus 3 centimetres. So it might be that that's how you write out your calculation. And in total, my perimeter is equal to 12 centimetres. So when we're dealing with regular shapes, it's nice and easy. We just measure the sides with whatever we can. If you've got squares, by all means count squares. If you've got a ruler, you can be super accurate and you can actually do it in centimetres or millimetres. But because we've measured in centimetres or millimetres, it's important we add those units on. So we're showing actually 12 what? Well, it's 12 centimetres. However, when we have shapes like this, or actually, if I put a dotted line down there, I could have separated that shape in 2 ways, of course. I could have gone across there. I've got 2 rectangles joined together, and this is what we call a compound shape. And this is where it's really important to have that starting point, more so than ever. So I don't go round and round and round the shape multiple times. I only want that one perimeter around the outside. I only want to work it out once. I don't want to go around twice. So I'm going to go back to counting squares because that's what I've got. I could, of course, continue to measure in centimetres or millimetres. However, it's just about you understanding we're working our way around the outside. So I've got 2 at the top. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go across now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to go down 3. At the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then up the final side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you can see because I've put that dot where I started, I'm not going to then go and count that 2 again. So our perimeter is equal to 9 plus 7 plus 7 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2. And I tend to write them in descending order because with our bigger numbers at the start. That's totally up to you. When it comes to adding it together as well, you can do it however you like. It might be that actually you think about your number bonds and you can put 7 and 3 together and that's 10. Maybe if you put 9 and 2, that gives you 11, so therefore I've got 21. And I'm going to add on the 4, which is 25. And then finally I'm going to add on the 7, which is 32. I hope you can double check that for me. So we've looked at our perimeter there in 3 different scenarios. So just counting squares around regular shapes, with regular shapes, and then instead we're measuring it to kind of have that high level of accuracy. And then we're starting to have compound shapes, and I could go back and measure that again and repeat the same process. But it's all about choosing that starting point and then working out the distance around the outside of a shape. So again, if this was a building, I'd be thinking about, well, that's how far I've got to walk to go all the way around it to get back to where I started. So, as I said at the start, because it's National Numeracy Day, instead of you just completing some questions and me being able to check the answers, it'd be really difficult for me to kind of draw out shapes and expect you to measure it. There's 3 tasks for you to have a go at. It's up to you if you do all of them, one of them. But have a go at drawing some shapes and calculating the perimeter, just like we've done. It might be that you start off with regular shapes. It might be that you draw some compound shapes. You could draw some really random, wild shapes and then just work out those perimeters. For part B, find the perimeter of some objects. Now you might be saying, well, I haven't got a ruler at home. If you've got one, that's great. But here's one of my favourite films. I've only got a rubber. I can still work out the perimeter. So I'm going to do a really rough sketch of my object. So it's obviously the DVD case. And I'm going to measure the distance in rubbers. I'm still going to use the same practice of starting at one corner. I'm going to measure it. So it's going to go 1, 2 across. And I'm going to allow myself a little bit of play. It doesn't have to be super accurate. If you've got a ruler, of course, that's where you can be really accurate. 1, 2, 3. And then of course again, because it's a regular shape, I know down the bottom it's going to be 2 and then 3. And you can see by my really rubbish sketch, and of course you will draw a much better one than I have, I've got 2 and 3 and 2 and 3. So in total my perimeter there must equal 10. And it might be that we say that it equals 10 rubbers. Use what you've got to hand. Then finally, kind of the ultimate challenge is using those same principles of taking a standardised measurement and then repeating that again. So like I had those rubbers, although for this you might need to find something a bit bigger. So measure the perimeter of a room. It could be any room in your house, but start in one corner and then measure how far that is. Doesn't matter if you've got a ruler and you want to actually work it out accurately, that's fine. But if you've just got an object and you keep that object the same, so you go and make sure that each end matches up with where it is and work out the distance around the outside of that room. So just to recap, draw some shapes and work out the perimeter. Find the perimeter of some objects using either a ruler or something else that can be a fixed measurement. And then finally, if you can, have a go at measuring the perimeter of a room.